The Big Short is secretly a masterclass in risk management. Most people watch The Big Short and see a movie about finance. I don't. I see one of the greatest risk management failures in modern history. The warning signs were everywhere. The data existed. The risks were visible, yet almost nobody acted. And when reality finally caught up, trillions of dollars disappeared. The fascinating part is that this wasn't just a financial crisis, it was governance, risk, and compliance failure on a massive scale. And that's why I think The Big Short might be one of the best GRC movies ever made. Let's start with risk itself. Imagine a bank lending money to people who have little chance of paying it back. Now, imagine thousands of those loans being bundled together and sold as investments. Now, imagine those investments being labeled as safe. That was essentially the system. As long as prices housing prices kept rising, everyone looked like a genius. Banks made money, brokers made money, investors made money, everyone was celebrating. And that's exactly what made the risk so dangerous, because success can hide problems. One of the most interesting characters in the movie is Michael Burry. While everyone else was celebrating, he was reading the data. Not the headlines, not the marketing, the data. And what he found was alarming. Many of these mortgages were far riskier than people believed. The cracks were already there. Most people just weren't looking closely enough to see them. That's one of the most important lessons in risk management. Good risk managers don't have a crystal ball. They simply pay attention to things other people ignore. But here's where the story becomes really interesting. The biggest failure wasn't identifying the risk. The risk was eventually identified. The biggest failure was what happened after that, or more accurately, what didn't happen. The warnings were raised, questions were asked, concerns were documented, yet the system kept moving forward. Why? Because everybody was making money, and that's where governance enters the picture. Good governance exists to challenge assumptions. It exists to ask uncomfortable questions. It exists to prevent organizations from becoming victims of their own success. But in the world portrayed by The Big Short, many of the incentives were pointing in the wrong direction. Banks benefited from issuing more loans, brokers benefited from selling more products, ratings agencies benefited from keeping clients happy, investors benefited from believing everything was safe. Nobody wanted to be the person who stopped the party. And when nobody wants to challenge the system becomes dangerous. Now, let's talk about compliance. A lot of people think compliance is just paperwork, policies, rules, audits, training sessions. But The Big Short shows why compliance matters. Because having rules on paper isn't enough. Having regulations isn't enough. Having policies isn't enough. People still need accountability, oversight, enforcement. Without those things, compliance becomes a little more than a checkbox exercise. And checkboxes don't stop disasters. People do. What makes this movie so powerful is that it isn't really about finance. It's about human behavior. It's about overconfidence. It's about incentives. It's about groupthink. It's about what happens when people become so comfortable with the system that they stop questioning it. And honestly, those same patterns show up everywhere in business, in government, in cybersecurity, in our personal lives. The details change, the behavior stays remarkably similar. The biggest lesson from The Big Short isn't about mortgages, it isn't about Wall Street, and it isn't even about the 2008 financial crisis. It's about the danger of ignoring warning signs. The information existed, the risk existed, the warnings existed. What was missing was the willingness to act. And that's exactly why governance, risk, and compliance matter. Because the next major disaster probably won't happen without warning. The real question is whether anyone will listen. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to Caesar Cyber Risk and let me know in the comments. What other movie secretly teaches an important lesson about governance, risk, or compliance?